So Donald Trump was at a rally in Pennsylvania today, and he was talking about his plans for the economy, for workers' pay, things like that. And what did he have to say about the economy? He's like, well, or about overtime? Well, I know more about overtime than anybody, which of course he does. He knows more about everything than everybody else. Just ask him. Because I know more about every time overtime. I didn't like to pay it. I wouldn't pay. I'd bring other people in, but I wouldn't pay. He wouldn't pay overtime. But what is his plan about overtime? Well, he wants to not tax overtime work. Okay. But the economists are saying that's just going to drive up the debt. He doesn't say where he's going to get that tax revenue back anywhere. Just cut it. Okay, cool. And that might work and influence some voters that are on a 40-hour work week. But what else are they talking about? Well, J.D. Vance or Project 2025, one or the other or both, have said that they want to change it from a 40-hour work week to a 160-hour work month. Now, what does a 160-hour work month look like? Well, that would mean you would have to put in 160 hours in the month in order to qualify for any overtime at all. So, first week of the month, you work 50 hours. You get paid at 50 hours straight time. Second week of the month, if you just put in your 40, you get paid 40 hours of straight time. Same with the third week. And then you would assume you work your 40 hours. The last week of the month, you would get 30 hours of regular pay and 10 hours of overtime then. That's what they're proposing. But what would the reality of that look like? More than likely, you would work a lot of hours early in the month, and once you hit your 160, you wouldn't get any more hours. I've worked for numerous companies with the overtime laws being just the way they are, where they want you to watch your time and you have to cut it down to the minute to make sure you don't go over by even a minute of overtime. They didn't want to pay a single minute of overtime. Why? Because it's expensive. The way they look at it, it is cheaper for them to bring in a second employee and pay them to do another amount of time than pay somebody overtime. Because for every 90 minutes that a new hire works, you would only get 60 hours of time from that employee on overtime. That's how they look at it. They don't want to pay it. So they would try to hire more people. Except then they don't hire more people necessarily. They just try to circumnavigate it. It's the same thing that a couple employers I worked with did with the Affordable Care Act and giving employees insurance. They cut the part-timers down to under 40 hours a week and figured out what the magic number was they couldn't go over in a yearly average, and then started tracking it. And well, if we use you a lot during the first part of the fiscal year, okay, fine, but then we'll cut your hours back to the back end of the year so you don't go over, so we don't have to give you insurance. And then you have employees coming to me saying, I've been here years, but I'm an adult. I can't make it on what I'm getting paid. And what are you supposed to do? And I can say, this is what I've been told to do. It's out of my hands. But that's how they do it. That's how these businesses operate. They don't want to pay overtime. They don't want to give benefits anymore. And Donald Trump's plan is to just not tax overtime and make it a 160-hour work month, instead of a 40-hour work week, to where they start requiring overtime. It's not going to work. Employers are going to find ways to take advantage of it, and they will abuse the hell out of it and their employees if it's allowed to happen.